podcast where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on. The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through the industry noise to bring you the bold truths that shape the future of dairy. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most controversial topics in global agriculture: the death of fair competition in dairy markets. While American dairy farmers optimize feed efficiency for marginal gains, their government-backed competitors are literally printing money. Russia just allocated $880 million in direct dairy support for 2025 alone. Norwegian farmers pocket subsidies worth 30% of their total revenue. The uncomfortable reality? You're not competing against other farmers anymore. You're competing against entire national treasuries. Today's episode explores how this global subsidy arms race is reshaping dairy competition, and more importantly, what smart operators are doing to build competitive advantages that no government subsidy can replicate. We'll reveal the genomic strategies that are generating $240 in additional lifetime value per animal, the breeding programs creating new revenue streams worth hundreds of thousands per operation, and why traditional industry approaches are systematically failing American dairy farmers. This is information the dairy establishment doesn't want you to hear, but it's exactly what you need to survive in today's distorted global marketplace. Let's get started.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've received some truly eye-opening material for this deep dive, straight from a Bullvine article titled Dairy Genomics, Competing Against Subsidies and Winning. And let me tell you, it cuts straight to an uncomfortable truth about global dairy, a reality many of us in the industry might prefer to ignore, maybe, but absolutely need to confront.
It's fascinating, isn't it? What's truly striking about this Bullvine article is how it immediately challenges a deeply ingrained assumption. Almost sacred, you might say.
Which assumption is that?
The idea of fair competition. It argues quite emphatically that pure market competition in the global dairy arena is, to put it bluntly, dead.
Dead. Not struggling, not on life support, just dead.
Declared irrevocably gone, according to the article.
Wow, that's a bold claim, one that really stops you in your tracks. But the Bullvine article isn't just being provocative, right? It backs this up.
Oh, absolutely. It uses some striking numbers that force a complete reevaluation of, your operating environment.
Okay, like what?
It suggests that while you, the diligent dairy producer, might be meticulously focused on those incremental gains, say, squeezing out an extra 0.1% in feed efficiency.
Right, the things we focus on every day.
Exactly. Your competitors on the global stage could literally be banking an additional $25,000, maybe even more, per cow in direct government support.
$25,000 per cow.
Or more. The article dramatically labels this staggering disparity the $880 million lie.
The $880 million lie. Okay. That sets a rather stark tone, doesn't it? Almost confrontational. It paints a picture of a playing field that's less about market dynamics and more about, national treasuries.
Indeed. And it posits that continuing to operate under the illusion of a level playing field, pretending that this free market fairy tale is anything but a dangerous fiction, it's actually actively bankrupting American farmers.
Bankrupting them. So ignoring this isn't just sticking your head in the sand, it's financially dangerous.
That's the argument. The core mission of this deep dive, as outlined in the Bullvine article, isn't just to lament this situation, it's to dissect precisely why this traditional mindset is so dangerous, so detrimental.
Okay.
But more critically, and this is where the actionable value truly lies, it's about what smart operators, what you, our listener, can and must do right now.
Teasing what?
Using advanced genetic strategies. To not just survive this brutally new reality, but to actually thrive within it. It's about finding a path to profitability when the very rules of the global game have fundamentally, irrevocably changed.
So we're not just competing against other individual farmers anymore, or even large co-ops.
Yeah.
We're up against entire national treasuries, backed by the full financial might of sovereign nations, actively manipulating market conditions.
That's the picture the article paints.
That truly is a fundamentally different ballgame. This is where the discussion truly deepens, because the Bullvine article lays out precisely how stark this new global dairy hierarchy has become, and why clinging to old notions of fair play is, well, a recipe for disaster.
The fair competition, illusion, and the reality of economic warfare.
Okay, so the Bullvine article opens with a real punch. Fair dairy competition is dead. It's not pulling any punches, is it?
Not at all. Straight to the point.
It asserts that while American farmers are meticulously optimizing feed conversion ratios, investing heavily in precision ag tech, implementing genomic testing for those marginal hard-won gains.
All the things you should be doing in a fair market.
Right. Their government-backed competitors are doing something far simpler and arguably far more impactful. They're literally printing money to gain an edge.
That's the phrase used. It's an almost unbelievable contrast, but the numbers they present seem to support this grim assessment.
And this isn't just exaggeration.
This isn't hyperbole, and that's what's crucial here. The Bullvine article provides concrete, verifiable examples of what it calls this state-sponsored economic warfare. And they are, quite frankly, staggering.
Such as,
For instance, Russia. In a strategic move that signals, well, aggressive intent to expand its dairy sector, just allocated a colossal $880 million in direct dairy support for 2025 alone.
$880 million for 1 year.
Yes. And to put that into perspective, that's not just a big number. It represents a monumental 50% increase from their 2024 allocation.
A 50% jump, wow.
Think about the sheer scale of that investment. It's designed to fundamentally alter their competitive position on the global stage, not just support struggling farms. It's about securing market share.
And it's not just Russia, right? The Bullvine article makes it clear this isn't isolated.
Not at all. It's widespread. Norwegian farmers, for example, are consistently pocketing subsidies equivalent to a massive 30% of their total revenue.
30%. Nearly a third of their income comes directly from the government.
That's what the article states. And Swiss producers, they're reportedly receiving support that's more than twice what farmers in other countries get.
Twice as much.
These aren't small payments. Not just safety nets. These are fundamental pillars of their agricultural economies, actively distorting the market. It fundamentally redefines what competition even means.
This raises a huge question then. For you, the dairy farmer listening right now, how do you, operating under traditional market principles, striving for efficiency and innovation, possibly compete against that kind of national financial backing?
Exactly. The article's brutal reality check, one we all need to confront head on, is that you're no longer simply competing against other individual farmers or even large ag enterprises based on efficiency or ingenuity.
Or hard work.
Or sheer hard work. You're competing against entire national treasuries with deep pockets, with strategic geopolitical objectives. That's a vastly different competitive landscape where traditional notions of fair play are just irrelevant.
The Bullvine article then urges us, quite emphatically, to stop believing the free market fairy tale. And it does so by laying out some truly stark numbers, illustrating the sheer disparity. It's a direct challenge, isn't it, to the comfortable narratives we might prefer.
It is. It forces us to remove those rose-tinted glasses.
So let's connect this to the bigger picture. Drill down into these numbers. You mentioned Canada.
Yes, let's look at Canada, a major player. They've seen an astonishing $3.2 billion in trade compensation over a period.
Billion with a B.
Billion. And the Bullvine article breaks that down to a more relatable figure. Roughly $328,000 per dairy farm within their system.
$328,000? Per farm. That's significant capital.
It is. Now compare that with the U.S. Here, the total dairy margin coverage, the DMC payments, which, are that crucial safety net when margins tighten.
Right, when milk prices drop relative to feed.
Exactly. Those payments amount to a comparatively modest $68 million in total.
$68 million total versus $3.2 billion.
The difference in scale is just immense, orders of magnitude apart.
And if we translate that even further, down to a per cow basis, that's where it gets really stark, right?
It really highlights the gulf. American dairy farmers, on average, are receiving about $3.40 per cow in targeted support through programs like DMC. $3.40.
Okay. And their subsidized competitors.
They're banking, according to the article, tens of thousands per cow annually.
Tens of thousands versus $3.40. That's not just a difference, that's a chasm. It makes those efficiency gains seem almost futile, doesn't it?
It certainly puts them in perspective. So what does this all truly mean for us operating on the ground, making daily decisions?
Yeah.
It fundamentally changes the viability of almost every operational choice.
The Bullvine article then states, quite bluntly,
Yes, and it's a quote worth repeating. That's not competition, that's economic warfare.
economic warfare.
It's an uncomfortable truth, certainly, but a necessary one to confront if we want to develop effective strategies. It fundamentally reframes the challenge.
It's not just about optimizing your farm anymore.
No, it's about navigating a global economic battlefield where the rules are rigged and where national treasuries are actively deployed as competitive weapons.
And what's even more concerning, this isn't static, is it? The article says this subsidy arms race is accelerating.
It's escalating. Not a static problem, an escalating threat. The Bullvine article presents a very clear, if maybe disheartening, new global dairy hierarchy. It shows exactly who's positioned where and their strategic advantages.
Okay, let's break that down. Canada.
Canada is described as a supply management fortress. This isn't just catchy. It signifies a system designed for profound insulation.
How so?
Strict production quotas, guaranteed cost plus pricing, and that massive 245% import tariff. They've received $3.2 billion over 10 years, roughly $328,000 per farm. Their farmers operate in a highly protected bubble.
Then Russia.
Russia. Aggressive expansion model. Backed by that $880 million for 2025 alone, the article quantifies their advantage at a staggering $26,680 per ton of dairy product.
Per ton, that's huge leverage.
It allows them to undercut competitors at will on the global market. Then Norway, protectionist pricing, gets a full 30% of its revenue directly from the government. That equates to over $15,000 per cow in support.
$15,000 per cow.
It maintains high internal prices, ensures farmer viability regardless of global markets.
And
The U.S.
the U.S., the article categorizes, has only a risk management approach. The $68 million DMC payments, a mere $3.40 per cow.
Just risk management, not strategic advantage.
Exactly. A bare-bones safety net, designed to prevent catastrophe, not foster aggressive growth or competitiveness.
So the uncomfortable question the Bullvine article puts directly to you, the listener, and it really hits home. How do you compete when your feed costs $400 per cow annually, while subsidized competitors literally get that covered by their government?
It's the critical point, isn't it? It highlights that it's no longer just about who's most efficient.
It's about who has their basic costs underwritten by a national treasury.
That changes everything, how you plan, invest, even survive.
Exposing the efficiency myth and the power of genetics.
Now, here's where the Bullvine article takes a really interesting, maybe counterintuitive turn. It challenges a long-held belief, right? Conventional wisdom. It does. It discusses new Cambridge University research that, as the article puts it, destroys the conventional wisdom that subsidies make farmers lazy.
We've heard that argument for years. Subsidies breed complacency.
Exactly. But this research suggests quite the opposite, which is a genuine paradigm shift.
How so?
This is crucial. The research reveals that coupled subsidies, those tied directly to production, like per head or per liter,
Okay.
actually reduce technical inefficiency in dairy farms.
Reduce inefficiency so they become more efficient.
That's what the research indicates. It's not just propping up failing farms. And what's even more fascinating, environmental subsidies payments for sustainable practices.
Like regenerative grazing or methane tech?
Precisely. Those actually improve overall efficiency across the farm.
Improve it.
So the long-standing narrative, subsidies create dependency, kill innovation. It's unequivocally debunked by this robust academic research. It's a compelling argument.
Okay, but what does this mean for your operation, the listener's farm? The article paints a harsh picture here, doesn't it?
It does. A harsh and frustrating reality. Those heavily subsidized European farms getting environmental payments. They're not just getting financial support for being green.
Right.
They're also simultaneously becoming more efficient competitors through these programs, leveraging government funds to adopt practices that boost their bottom line.
Meanwhile, you're investing your own hard-earned money, your capital,
Oh.
in sustainability improvements,
Yeah.
driven by the market or consumers or your own ethics.
Exactly. And they're getting paid by their governments to implement them.
It's not just a disadvantage, it's a double whammy.
Precisely. You're paying to keep up while they're being actively subsidized to pull ahead, like running a race where your competitor gets a head start and faster shoes, courtesy of their national treasury.
So where does that leave us? What's the countermove?
This leads the Bullvine article to its central, most vital point, the core of its strategy. the genetic defense strategy.
Okay.
It identifies genetic merit that compounds annually as the one competitive advantage that no government subsidy can replicate.
No government subsidy can replicate.
Think about that. Governments can print money, offer grants, impose tariffs, subsidize tech, but they simply cannot print superior genetics into existence for their farmers.
Right. It's biological.
This inherent biological advantage, cultivated within your own herd, becomes the ultimate differentiator, an unassailable asset. It's an internal strength that grows stronger over time, independent of external forces.
That's a powerful idea, and an advantage so fundamental, so inherent, that no government can just print it. It's about cultivating something truly unique, self-sustaining, a living asset. And this isn't just theory. The article has proof.
It does. It gives us real, tangible numbers from what it calls the UK genomic revolution, showing the actual financial impact.
What do the numbers say?
The Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board, AHDB, data from 2024 is quite telling. It clearly reveals a significant genetic gap.
Okay.
Specifically, there's a substantial 193 trades per animal difference in lifetime profitability between farms fully using comprehensive genomic testing versus those with only partial or no implementation.
193 pounds per animal, lifetime profit.
Yes, that's nearly $240 USD. A substantial sum when you scale it across a herd over an animal's productive life. It's a demonstrated financial impact.
That's incredibly significant, especially when you multiply it out. Does the article go deeper?
It does. It shows an average PLI, that's the profitable lifetime index, of 430 pounds for calves and herds with comprehensive genomic programs.
And PLI covers milk, components, fertility, health, total profit potential.
Exactly. Compare that 430 pounds to a significantly lower average PLI of only 237 pounds for herds testing just portions of their animals.
Wow. So the more complete the testing, the higher the profit potential.
The data clearly suggests that direct correlation.
So what's the big takeaway here?
This translates, as the Bullvine article emphasizes, into a situation where, while subsidized competitors get temporary financial advantages, genomic-driven operations build permanent genetic improvements that accumulate over generations.
Temporary versus permanent, external versus internal. That's the key distinction.
Absolutely. Subsidies can be withdrawn. They fluctuate with politics, budgets. But genetic improvements, once embedded in your herd, they continue providing compounding value year after year, fundamentally strengthening the enterprise from within.
Independent of external support.
Exactly. It's about building long-term, self-sustaining value, not dependent on the whims of politicians or the depth of a national treasury.
Okay, the article then pivots. It talks about another strategic shift smart operators are making. Diversifying income. Beef on dairy.
Yes, it points to compelling California dairy data, says it exposes a breeding revolution creating new profit centers.
A revolution. So it's not just a niche trend, not just managing extra calves.
It seems to be a significant restructuring, generating substantial new revenue, a real business model innovation.
What does the California data show?
It's compelling. A striking 81% of dairy operations in California now actively use beef semen on their dairy cows. That practice used to be rare.
81%.
So why? For 78% of them, the primary motivation cited is extra profit. It's not an incidental benefit, it's the main goal.
Extra profit.
And what's even more impactful, showing the strategic commitment, 34% of these farms are breeding more than 30% of their eligible cows with beef semen.
More than 30%. That's not just dabbling.
No, it's a conscious, deliberate decision, fundamentally altering their overall business model. Diversifying income streams well beyond just fluid milk, they're actively creating a high-value secondary product.
And what breeds are they using? The article mentions specifics.
It does. Angus dominates at an impressive 89% usage, shows its widespread acceptance, perceived value,
Okay.
followed by Limousin at 12%, and then the increasingly popular premium Wagyu at 10%.
Wagyu, right. So considering these choices, the widespread adoption, what's the core strategic insight here for our listeners, for their balance sheet?
The strategic insight, according to the Bullvine article, is crucial. While subsidized competitors focus on volume production, smart American operators are diversifying revenue streams through strategic breeding that creates premium calf markets. Subsidies cannot penetrate.
Cannot penetrate. So it bypasses the subsidized commodity markets.
Exactly. Instead of trying to outproduce or out-subsidize competitors in fluid milk, you're creating a new, higher-value product, operating in a different, less distorted market segment.
These premium calf markets offer higher margins.
For specific beef genetics, yes. They're less susceptible to the direct distorting effects of government subsidies on commodity milk prices. It's about finding niches, building unique value, generating profit in areas immune to direct government intervention.
Okay, to make this really tangible, moving from theory to real-world impact, the article offers an elite operation case study. Precision genetics beats government support.
Yes, this is where the financial advantages really hit home. Let's consider this real-world scenario mentioned. A Wisconsin operation implemented comprehensive genomic selection, core part of their breeding program.
All right.
This farm, by focusing on advanced genetics, data-driven decisions, generates an impressive 193 cents, which is about $240 USD, in additional lifetime value per animal compared to operations using traditional, less precise breeding.
$240 extra profit per cow over her lifetime, compared to traditional methods.
That's the finding. And it's not just milk yield, it's the total economic contribution, health, fertility, longevity.
So if we scale that up, say a 1,000 cow herd, 400 replacements a year.
That's a staggering $96,000 in additional annual genetic gain.
$96,000. Let that sink in. And compare that to the DMC payment.
Exactly. The Bovine article highlights that the significant sum is nearly 30 times the DMC program's per cow support of a mere $3.40.
30 times. It really puts the impact of genetics versus typical government support into stark contrast, doesn't it? Shows where the real leverage lies.
It truly highlights what the article calls the genomic multiplier effect.
The multiplier effect, how does that work?
Unlike subsidies, which provide temporary relief, a one-time injection, an annual payment needing renewal,
Right, dependent on policy.
genetic improvements compound annually. A 2% improvement in component yield, for instance, achieved through genomic selection. It doesn't just benefit the animal for one lactation.
It keeps paying off.
It continues paying dividends for the animal's entire productive life, increasing the value of every gallon produced. And critically, those superior traits transfer directly to the offspring,
So it builds across generations.
perpetuating and enhancing the herd's overall profitability. This is a game changer because it builds intrinsic self-sustaining value. Government support simply cannot replicate or take that away. It's an exponential advantage.
Deeper dive into global subsidy models and the technology trap.
Okay, the Bovine article really drills down into these different subsidy models around the world. It calls them the 3 subsidy models reshaping global competition. It seems vital to understand these, right? To know how others are playing the game.
Absolutely, because they explain why traditional competition is becoming obsolete.
Let's start with Model 1, the fortress strategy of Canada. What does that actually mean for them and for everyone else?
This system, the fortress strategy, is built on specific pillars designed to protect their domestic market from essentially any external competition.
How?
It involves stringent production quotas for farmers managing supply, coupled with guaranteed cost-plus pricing. Farmers are assured of price-covering costs, plus a predetermined profit margin.
Regardless of global prices.
Regardless, it's a very insulated environment, and critically, to enforce this, a massive 245% import tariff on dairy products.
245% makes foreign milk impossible to compete on price there.
Virtually impossible. The reality is quota holders receive a substantial $25,500 per kilogram of butterfat quota annually. It's not just income, it's a valuable, tradable asset.
So what's the challenge for us then, for U.S. farmers?
The challenge, as the Bovine article points out, is that while Canadian milk rarely competes directly in global markets because of this, their protected domestic market represents an astonishing $9.15 billion in lost export opportunities for other countries.
Including the U.S.
Including, significantly, the U.S. So it's not just what they consume internally, it's what they prevent others from exporting to them, shrinking the global pie for unsubsidized producers.
It's like passive-aggressive economic warfare.
You could see it that way.
Okay, Model 2, the war economy in Russia. We touched on the $880 million. What else does this involve?
The article adds more detail to their aggressive strategy. It includes a 1.5x increase in overall dairy support. The government is significantly escalating its commitment. It's a strategic national priority. Farmers also benefit from 8.3% concessional loans far below market rates. Basically, the government is heavily subsidizing their borrowing costs.
Giving them a massive leg up on financing expansions.
Exactly. Additionally, they receive 42% cost reimbursement for certain expenditures, directly lowering operational costs.
Yeah.
It's very direct, very aggressive state intervention, designed to rapidly expand their market footprint.
And their goal, The article mentions a production target.
Quite ambitious. To boost dairy production from 34 million tons to 38.5 million tons by 2030.
So, given this aggressive expansion, the massive funding, what's the real tangible threat to you, the listener, to your operation?
The threat is significant. Global implications. $4.8 billion in additional subsidized milk potentially hitting global markets within a few years.
$4.8 billion worth.
This isn't just about meeting domestic demand. It's about dramatically increasing their export capacity, their market share, using artificially cheap product.
Flooding the market.
It's a tremendous volume, backed by government funds, designed to expand reach, disrupt established trade flows, not necessarily compete on pure market terms where efficiency is the key. It creates an oversupply of artificially cheap product that you, the unsubsidized farmer, simply cannot compete with on price without taking huge losses.
It's a race to the bottom you can't afford to run.
That's the risk.
And finally, Model 3, the Green Shield from the EU. This sounds different. 400 million annually, eco scheme requirements, CAP protection. It sounds more benign, maybe? Even progressive.
It sounds that way, but the article suggests a serious, maybe insidious competitive advantage is built into it, far from harmless for unsubsidized competitors.
How so? What's the catch?
The advantage, as Bollvine article highlights, is precisely that European farmers are getting paid for environmental practices you must implement at your own cost.
Ah, so they get paid for things we have to do anyway.
Exactly. This creates a massive, inherent, often overlooked cost disparity. For example, the article points out Dutch farmers allocate 32% of their government payments specifically to environmental initiatives.
Practices like improving soil health, reducing emissions, managing water.
The very things you, in an unsubsidized market like the U.S., would typically fund privately, out of your own pocket, to meet consumer demand, regulations, or just improve sustainability.
So it creates this hidden subsidy that directly impacts our costs versus theirs. They're essentially getting paid to do what we do for free.
Precisely.
This cost disparity then leads directly into what the article calls the technology investment trap, a precision ag paradox that's killing American competitiveness.
It sounds dramatic, but
It suggests our investments in efficiency and innovation can actually become a liability. That seems backwards.
it's a sobering thought. Consider the scenario in the article. You might invest $150,000 in advanced robotic milking systems, a huge outlay, expecting to boost efficiency 15–20%.
Right, improving the bottom line, reducing labor.
Meanwhile, the Bollvine article notes, your subsidized competitors in other countries could be receiving $200,000 or more in direct government grants for identical technology.
$200,000. They're getting it for free or even being paid to install it.
That's the scenario presented. And the gains from such tech are huge. Research cited shows precision dairy farming can increase milk yield 30%, cut feed cost 25%, reduce environmental impact 20%. Huge benefits.
The article asks the painful question. What do these substantial gains mean when competitors get the technology free? How do you recoup your $150K investment when they have none?
It implies your technology investments have fundamentally shifted from being genuine competitive advantages putting you ahead
To just survival necessities.
Exactly. You're forced to buy this expensive tech just to keep pace with an unequal playing field, not to truly get ahead. The investment becomes a mandatory cost of doing business.
Ah.
An entry ticket.
You're not winning the race, you're just trying not to be lapped.
That's a good way to put it.
The genomic competitive response and challenging orthodox.
Okay, so if technology investments are just about survival now, what are smart operations doing to gain a real, unassailable edge? The Bollvine article outlines this genomic competitive response, focusing on genetics-based strategies that subsidies just cannot replicate.
Correct. This is where the individual farmer can truly take control. They're implementing component-focused breeding programs.
Not just more milk volume, but specific components.
Exactly. Systematically targeting valuable milk components that command premium pricing, specifically aiming for 4.2% butterfat and 3.3% protein through precise genomic selection.
That's a very deliberate goal, moving beyond gallons to the value of each gallon.
Precisely.
And the payoff. What does the article say this focus on components yields?
It says this strategic shift can generate an additional $15,000 to $20,000 in annual revenue per 100 cow herd through premium pricing.
15 to 20,000 extra per 100 cows. That's significant, straight to the bottom line.
It is. And importantly, it creates defensible market positions that commodity imports cannot easily penetrate. You're selling a higher value specialized product, less susceptible to global price manipulation.
Finding your economic sanctuary.
A good way to think about it. They're also rigorously engaging in crossbreeding revenue diversification.
That's the beef on dairy again.
Yes. Implementing strategic programs using high-value beef breeds like Wagyu and premium Angus lines on lower-end dairy cows. It's not just managing unwanted bull calves, it's actively creating a secondary high-value product.
Turning a cost center into a profit center.
Exactly. Tapping into a completely different market segment.
This diversification creates new revenue streams, reduces dependency on volatile milk prices.
Right. Spreading risk, building resilience, opening new profit avenues less susceptible to commodity swings, stabilizing income.
And for those really committed to genetics, going all in.
The article outlines genomic acceleration strategies. This means going beyond partial testing, proactively DNA testing 100% of all replacement heifers.
Not just the elites, the whole group.
The entire group, for a complete, unbiased, granular picture of the herd's genetic potential, allowing truly informed breeding decisions across the board.
And focusing selection, not just on volume or looks.
No. Specifically on economically relevant traits, high components, improved fertility, enhanced health resistance. The goal is building genetic merit advantages that compound over generations, giving you a long-term self-sustaining edge.
Being intentional, data-driven, forward-thinking, making every birth a strategic investment.
Precisely. Now, here's where the Bovine article introduces something truly controversial, something that might make some folks uncomfortable.
What's that?
It's what the article calls challenging industry orthodoxy, the breeding association conspiracy of silence.
Conspiracy of silence, that's strong language.
It is. It claims major breeding organizations are, for whatever reason, inertia, tradition, protecting revenue models, unwilling to publicly acknowledge that traditional breeding approaches are systematically inferior to comprehensive genomic programs for achieving economic gains.
So they know genomics is better for the bottom line, but aren't saying it.
That's the implication.
Yet the article says these same associations continue promoting outdated evaluation methods that favor large established operations over innovation.
That's the argument, and the data presented to support this is quite devastating for conventional wisdom. Suggests a disconnect between science and industry practice.
Like what data?
For example, the Bovine article points out Holstein Association registration programs still heavily emphasize visual appraisal and pedigree analysis.
Things like type classification, looking at the cow.
Exactly. While those have history and some aesthetic value, genomic research has repeatedly proven them less effective, even inferior, for accurately predicting economic traits, components, health, profitability.
So prioritizing appearance over proven performance.
That's the critique. And here's another detail highlighted. AI organizations report only 80% of beef bull collections qualify for sale for use in dairy versus 90% for Holstein bulls. Yet, the article states they continue promoting traditional fertility evaluation methods that may not be fully objective, especially in crossbreeding. Raises questions about criteria and biases.
And there was something about conception rates.
Even more pointedly, yes. The article cites research showing sire conception rates for Angus bulls, a beef breed at 33.8%, actually match Holstein bulls at 34.3% when used on dairy cows.
They match. Angus conception rates are the same as Holstein on dairy cows.
According to the cited research, this surprising parity, the article argues, proves breed biases in traditional recommendations lack a strong scientific basis for fertility in crossbreeding. Suggests ingrained notions, traditional biases, rather than robust data, might be influencing recommendations.
So the uncomfortable question the article poses for industry leaders for these associations is, why do breeding associations continue promoting evaluation systems that genomic research has proven less effective than DNA-based selection for economic traits?
Yes. It strongly suggests an industry perhaps more interested in protecting established hierarchies, traditional revenues, or a familiar status quo,
rather than truly pushing for the most advanced, data-driven methods that benefit the individual farmer most.
That's the implication. It's a challenge to the foundation of how many make breeding decisions.
This connects directly to another stark reality, the environmental subsidy revolution, which the article labels game over for unsubsidized farms.
Stark language again, yes. It cites WWF UK research proving regenerative dairy systems can deliver financial returns, improve soil health, biodiversity, carbon sequestration. good things.
But there's a catch.
A crucial caveat. This financial viability only holds true when you're not simultaneously competing against farmers getting directly paid by their governments to implement those same practices.
You incur the cost, they get compensated. That again.
The article lays out a green subsidy advantage gap, illustrating how profoundly this affects competitiveness. For instance, methane reduction tech might cost you $25 per cow per year. A subsidized competitor could have it government funded, plus maybe get carbon credits on top, turning an expense into revenue.
Wells.
Precision feeding systems. $15,000 setup for you. Significant capital. An EU eco-scheme payment could cover €4,500 for a competitor. A direct offset, even genomic testing at $40 per test for you, could be included in development subsidies for others, making it essentially free.
The brutal math, then.
As the bovine article concludes, is undeniable and deeply unsettling. Environmental subsidies aren't just supporting competitors, they're creating permanent cost advantages you can never overcome through efficiency alone.
Even if you're the most efficient farmer, work harder, innovate more.
If your competitors' core costs, even for environmental improvements, are covered by their government, you're fighting an unwinnable battle on traditional terms. It's a treadmill speeding up, the incline getting steeper.
So how do smart operators tackle this seemingly insurmountable challenge, this multi-front war?
The article suggests a powerful counter-strategy using a genomic environmental solution.
Leveraging genetics not just for production, but for environmental benefits that also create economic value.
Exactly. Turning a challenge into an opportunity. This involves strategically selecting for methane-efficient genetics.
How?
Focusing on feed efficiency traits that inherently reduce methane output per unit of milk. By targeting feed conversion ratios of 1.75.1 or better through genomic selection, the article states you can generate $25,000 to $50,000 in annual cost savings for a 100-cow operation.
So a direct financial benefit from environmental improvements, reducing your footprint and boosting profitability.
A win-win that subsidies can't just replicate.
And beyond methane.
It's about broader component environment integration, breeding for higher components, more value per animal, making each cow more environmentally efficient, focusing on fertility traits to reduce replacement rates, lowering the environmental costs of raising heifers, reducing the herd's carbon footprint.
And building genetic profiles that might qualify for carbon credits.
Yes, transforming an environmental responsibility into a potential new revenue stream. It's about being proactive, integrated, forward-thinking, making your herd inherently more sustainable and measurably more profitable, designing your herd for the future today.
The Genetic Survival Playbook. Actionable strategies.
Okay, so after all this talk about challenges and potential solutions, what are smart operators actually doing on their farms right now, beyond just hoping? The Bovine article gives us a concrete genetic survival playbook, broken down into immediate, medium, and long-term strategies.
Yes, this isn't just theory. It's a practical step-by-step guide. For immediate defensive strategies, things you can implement within the next 30 days, the article urges a fundamental mindset shift. Stop playing by broken rules. Start thinking like a genetic strategist.
Taking control of what you can control, starting with understanding your genetic reality.
Precisely.
First up, a comprehensive genomic audit. What does that involve?
DNA testing 100% of your replacement heifers. Not just perceived elites, not a sample, the entire group, to get a complete, unbiased, accurate picture of your entire herd's potential.
Allows truly informed decisions.
Yes. It also means focusing selection specifically on proven economic traits, components, fertility, health resistance, those that directly impact the bottom line. And crucially, eliminating visual appraisal bias, favoring performance over appearance.
Breeding of the profit, not the show ring.
Exactly. Next, the article advises a swift component revolution implementation.
Setting clear, ambitious genetic targets that influence the milk check.
Right. Aiming for 4.2% butterfat, 3.3% protein through systematic, data-driven selection. Consciously prioritizing component premiums over sheer milk volume and breeding decisions.
Shifting focus from quantity to quality.
Building genetic profiles that consistently command premium pricing, turning a trait into a direct, defensible revenue advantage.
And finally, for immediate actions, beef on dairy revenue diversification.
Implement strategic crossbreeding on a significant portion, 25-30% of eligible dairy animals. Emphasizing high-value beef breeds Wagyu, premium Angus lines that command higher prices.
And developing direct marketing relationships.
Yes. for those premium crossbred calves, cutting out middlemen, maximizing profit per calf, capturing more of the value chain, transforming an expense or break even into a strong revenue stream.
Okay, moving to medium-term competitive repositioning, the next 3 to 6 months. What's the focus here?
Building crucial competitive intelligence, solidifying your genetic superiority, deeper integration of data, more strategic planning for compounding advantages.
This includes genomic data integration.
Yes. Implementing comprehensive DNA testing protocols across the entire replacement program, consistency, thoroughness in data collection, focusing on traits with the highest economic impact for your specific operation.
And building genetics databases, tracking performance.
Absolutely. Tracking actual performance improvements over time so you can clearly see the results of your breeding decisions, adjust strategy, moving from guesswork to data-driven precision.
And then breeding program acceleration.
This involves securing elite genetics access, actively partnering with leading AI organizations for the highest genomic bulls available, prioritizing their genetic merit for economic traits, regardless of traditional popularity.
Not just the famous names.
Not necessarily. It also means developing custom breeding strategies specific to your herd's facility constraints, nutrition, management goals, ensuring genetics fit your operational reality, not generic recommendations, and rigorous performance tracking, systematically recording progress metrics, calving intervals, component percentages to validate strategies, ensure continuous improvement.
Looking at long-term strategic positioning now, 6 to 12 months out, preparing for the post-subsidy genetic advantage.
Yes, building a truly future-proof operation, resilient to external distortions and government whims. This is about genetic merit compounding, building comprehensive 10-year genetic improvement plans, clear, measurable targets focusing on cumulative gains and key economic traits, establishing elite cow families within your herd, identifying, nurturing animals with consistently superior genetics for maximum progress acceleration,
Creating a pipeline of high-value replacements.
and consciously creating breeding programs that generate deep inherent genetic advantages competitors cannot quickly replicate or buy their way into, building that unassailable biological moat around your business.
And finally, market position optimization.
Proactively developing premium component milk contracts, negotiating directly with processors who reward genetic superiority in fat and protein, not just volume, targeting processor relationships that explicitly value consistent, high-quality genetics.
Giving you an edge in pricing, market access, preferred supplier status.
Potentially. And, where strategically possible, building direct-to-consumer channels for products from your genetically superior animals, capturing more value, fostering deeper connections with consumers who appreciate quality and transparency.
Now, what's fascinating here, a real counterpoint to all this subsidy talk, is how the Bovine article uses New Zealand.
Yes, a powerful example. A compelling case against the idea that government support is essential, or that it makes farmers more efficient.
It calls New Zealand's success a miracle that destroys every subsidy defender's argument, because they abolished all farm subsidies back in 1984.
All of them. The article asks pointedly, wouldn't they have collapsed decades ago if subsidies truly enhanced competitiveness and were necessary for survival? Their continued global dominance contradicts that idea.
An inconvenient truth for those relying on government checks.
Exactly. Instead, they've thrived, maintained market leadership through relentless operational efficiency and aggressive genetic innovation, exactly what economic theory predicts in a truly competitive environment.
So the genomic insight here is,
New Zealand's success demonstrates that genetic merit, operational efficiency, and shrewd market positioning create far more sustainable, resilient competitive advantages than government financial support ever could.
which raises a big question for everyone.
A crucial question for you, the listener, and policymakers worldwide. Are heavily subsidized dairy sectors truly building genuine, lasting competitive advantages? Or are they inadvertently creating dangerous dependencies that will inevitably collapse when government support changes or disappears?
It's a critical distinction, profound long-term implications.
Absolutely.
To really bring home the financial impact, the Bovine article provides market intelligence, a global genetic competitiveness analysis table.
Yes, and it truly crystallizes the financial impact, puts numbers to the concepts.
What does it show?
It's quite illustrative. Traditional breeding methods,
Right.
minimal cost, maybe $5,000 for 1,000 cows, but yield essentially a pounds per animal in genetic gain. No measurable progress towards profitability, just maintaining status quo.
Okay.
In stark contrast, comprehensive genomic testing. Higher upfront investment, $40,000 for 1,000 cows, but provides a remarkable $193 per animal in genetic gain.
Which leads to?
Over $600,000 in added herd value over 10 years, the article calculates. A massive ROI.
What about partial testing?
Partial genetic evaluation. Middle ground cost, $15,000, offers only $37 per animal. Much smaller gain, $115,000 herd value. And strategic crossbreeding. $25,000 setup offers $150 per calf, creating over a $400,000 revenue stream from beef calves.
The numbers don't lie.
They make a strong case.
So the strategic insight from the bovine article is crystal clear.
Unequivocally clear. Genetic improvements provide the only competitive advantage that compounds annually and cannot be replicated through government intervention. It's the constant, self-renewing gift. Year after year, generation after generation, a tangible asset growing within your own operation. Outro host speaker and expert speaker.
So to bring this deep dive full circle, remember that $880 million Russian investment we started with? That number that seemed almost too massive.
Hard to forget.
The bovine article states it's not just money. It's a very clear declaration that global dairy competition is now, unequivocally, state-sponsored economic warfare.
It changes everything. How you approach your business, daily decisions, long-term investments.
And building on that, the myth of fair competition in dairy markets. It isn't just wrong, it's profoundly dangerous.
Operating under that illusion, believing you're on a level playing field, while competitors get massive, disproportionate government backing, as the article highlights. It's a recipe for slow-motion bankruptcy.
An unsustainable path. You get left behind.
That's exactly.
The bovine article's genetic survival playbook, though, it really shines a light, separates the genetic survivors from the subsidy casualties in this new environment.
It offers a clear path forward.
First, stop hoping for fairness. Start proactively building measurable, compounding genetic advantages in your own herd. And realizing environmental sustainability isn't just good farming, it's strategic positioning.
For future premium markets, carbon credit opportunities, especially when competitors get paid for practices you're doing at your own cost.
Second, and maybe the most profound takeaway,
Genomic selection provides the only truly sustainable competitive advantage against unlimited government support. Unlike subsidies external, volatile component yield improvements, breeding efficiency gains achieved through genomics, they compound annually.
creating permanent, intrinsic advantages within your herd.
Advantages subsidies cannot replicate or purchase for a competitor. This is your unassailable fortress.
And third, the article firmly asserts, traditional breeding approaches, often promoted by industry associations, are systematically inferior to comprehensive genomic programs for actual economic gains, building a resilient future.
It's a direct challenge, urging you to question conventional wisdom about visual appraisal, pedigree analysis methods. Genomic research has repeatedly proven less effective for economic traits that drive profitability.
Time to embrace the data.
Absolutely.
So what's the immediate next step for the listener?
As advised by the bovine article, take a hard, honest look at your own operation. Calculate your herd's current genetic merit using comprehensive genomic evaluations, not traditional, less accurate methods.
Get your real numbers.
Get your real numbers. If your genomic PLI averages below 400 pounds per animal, or if you're not implementing comprehensive DNA testing across your entire replacement herd, then you've just identified your biggest strategic vulnerability.
But also,
Crucially, you've also identified your most important and immediate competitive opportunity. For building those subsidy-proof advantages that will sustain your operation long-term, this is your personal call to action.
okay, here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over after this deep dive, directly from the bovine article, and it really sticks with you.
Yeah.
If comprehensive genomic selection consistently generates $193 in additional lifetime value per animal compared to traditional methods, why are major breed associations still actively promoting visual appraisal and pedigree analysis, methods that genetic research has definitively proven inferior for economic traits?
It's a question that demands an honest answer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Speaks volumes about where true progress lies versus, well, industry inertia.
The answer, the article suggests, reveals an industry perhaps more interested in protecting established hierarchies, traditional revenue streams, a comfortable status quo,
rather than truly advancing genetic progress for the maximum benefit of individual producers.
And this conventional thinking, ironically, is exactly what subsidized competitors leverage to their advantage.
It's a fundamental challenge to that status quo.
The dairy industry's future, as this deep dive makes abundantly clear, belongs to operations that build measurable genetic advantages through DNA-driven selection and innovation.
It does not belong to those who simply hope for favorable trade policies to suddenly materialize, or who cling to outdated breeding traditions and that false sense of fair competition.
The genetic tools exist today, right now, to build competitive advantages that no subsidy, no matter how large, can replicate.
The question is, will you use them?
That's our deep dive into the $880 million lie that's reshaping global dairy competition. The takeaway is clear. The myth of fair market competition in dairy is not just wrong, it's dangerous. While you wait for level playing fields that will never exist, your subsidized competitors are building permanent advantages. But here's the empowering truth. Genomic selection, strategic breeding programs, and component-focused strategies give you tools to compete that no government subsidy can replicate. The genetic advantages you build today compound annually and transfer to the next generation. That's something no Treasury Department can match. Your immediate action step: audit your current genetic strategy. If you're not implementing comprehensive genomic testing across 100% of your replacement heifers, you've identified your biggest competitive vulnerability and your most important opportunity. The dairy industry's future belongs to operations that build measurable genetic advantages through DNA-driven selection, not those hoping for favorable trade policies or clinging to outdated breeding traditions. For more game-changing insights that challenge industry conventional wisdom, visit us at www.thebullvine.com. Subscribe to our newsletter for the bold analysis that progressive dairy professionals depend on. This has been the Bullvine Podcast. Until next time, keep building advantages that matter.